Thanks for watching Slice of SciFi. I'm Noah Richmond,
And I'm Daren Goldswig.
talking about the Batman. Not Batman, but the Batman.
Or
So
the
this
Batman.
is,
Another Batman movie.
yes, we are talking about 2022's major DC cinematic universe release, The Batman. Um, once again, we are revisiting Batman The Dark Knight. It's another shadowy, dark portrayal of the Batman world, a very crime-filled, very corrupted Gotham City. This time around, it is directed by Matt Reeves, and I think this was sort of a selling point for both of us in terms of having some interest in going to see it. Matt Reeves had previously done a couple of the Planet of the Apes films that we'd thought pretty highly of, and he was also the director of Cloverfield. But prior to that, he had some background as a director of TV crime dramas, and so something that I certainly found interesting coming into this Batman when the movie first started was the way that it did come in the style of a police procedural. That you know, one of the things that sort of was gripping about it, and immediately for about the first hour or so, was how much it was drawing you into this world of intrigue of ooh, what are the clues? Where is this leading? What's going on with this? Um, so I don't know. What did you think was good about the movie there? And let's start with the things that we liked.
Well, it was I believe the catchphrase for this movie was "Unmask the Truth," which so what was good about the movie was it started off feeling like a detective movie in some ways. It was from that perspective, it was actually quite approachable, and I was intrigued, and there were a couple of moments where I was actually enjoying it. And so it was feeling like, you referenced Matt Reeves' work. I mean, it actually felt like a good detective movie, like of which Batman has always been referred to as a detective, right? So it's interesting. I was intrigued by this, obviously, because of Matt Reeves' pedigree of work he's done prior to this. And, Colin Farrell's kind of like a chameleon in a lot of ways when he does his parts. And so I was interested in seeing how he would have portrayed the Penguin. And of course, Paul Dano's his work is amazing in the past. So the villains the actors they had hired for the villains were obviously very intriguing for me. And of course, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, that was a good choice in my mind too. So I don't know. I was generally excited to watch it. So
yeah, good performances, a strong director. I kind of went into it. Really, my initial reaction to it was just sort of yawn, don't care. Here we go, Dark Knight Batman again. And when I sat down with it and it started out, that sense of making it more of like a crime procedural, that approach really did feedback more into like what I've read the original Bob Kane, the original Batman #1. It evoked some of that sense of, yeah, it's the Dark Knight, but it's also it is Detective Comics number, whatever it was, but there was actually some feeling that you're getting drawn into a mystery that stars Batman, and so that was something that I certainly thought worked very well for the first hour of this 3-hour movie.
what did you think about, we're talking about, I was mentioning the actors, that's what I enjoyed, but what did you think about like Andy Serkis as Alfred? Matt obviously worked with Andy before with the Planet of Apes
Yeah.
movie. So there's obviously, but what did you think about him as Alfred? And of course, as James Gordon, we have Jeffrey Wright, who's been amazing in Westworld and things like that. So I mean,
Yeah.
I thought both of their performances in their respective roles were really pretty solid.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that.
I didn't have any. I guess I didn't have any issue. Although Andy Serkis, I don't know that I particularly felt like, wow, what a great Alfred either. I think I thought he was just, it was fine. I didn't have an issue with it. Um, I think one of the more interesting questions about it was this Robert Pattinson portrayal of Bruce Wayne slash Batman, because it was certainly a more damaged Batman. I mean, we're used to Batman being damaged, but this is a different kind of damaged. Like it was almost borderline. Uh, what's that, like a borderline autism almost?
It almost felt like we were watching an emo Batman. I don't know. I hate to say that, but yeah, I mean, I didn't address as far as things I liked. You'll notice I left out Robert Pattinson's Batman, and I can wait to say that. But
yeah, I mean,
as far as,
I don't know. For me, it was both, because I did think that was one thing about the film, because we're going to get into our gripes pretty soon. But certainly one of my gripes about the film was I did feel at the end of the day it didn't really bring all that much new to the table. But that was one thing that it did bring that was somewhat new. The particular portrayal of Bruce Wayne was something that I haven't really seen done yet.
Well, I mean, we'd seen it before, but not. It wasn't constantly right in your face. Like at some point, I was thinking, is this dude actually the Batman, or is he just,
Yeah, he was a very mopey, moody Batman, for sure.
Yeah, and again, I think because of its length, it just became that much. It almost felt like pretentious. At some point, it was like, okay, can we get? And then of course, but again, that's a gripe. But one more thing I was going to add about things I liked, real quick before we switch gears here. I did enjoy the music soundtrack for it. I thought, even though it was great, I thought it was there were moments where it was just really well thought out. I thought in fact, when I got home, I actually looked up some of the music to reaffirm my thoughts, and there was definitely some good work on there. And I thought that some of the sound design was amazing, especially when Batman is walking into a scene and all you see is the shadow, but you hear his footsteps, this loud, plodding, crushing sound, and it puts a lot of emphasis on this man entering this room. And of course, the fact that all the other cops look at him like he's this, oh, who is this vigilante coming in and doing our jobs for us? And there was a lot of effectiveness with that. And I kind of like that. And of course, that was in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing I would say that I liked about it is it did not force us, like, even it gave us brand new actors, brand new Batman story, but it did not force us on yet another origin story. It just sort of went right into Batman.
Well, it actually blew it up is what it did, but
fair enough.
Yeah, but no, I'm with you. That's the one thing you and I have always agreed upon, is when we do these reboots, is that taking us like 75 minutes in the movie to establish a character that everyone already knows about. And so it's not like this is Nova the Human Rocket that we all have to watch the origin story on or something.
Yeah. All right. So that, those are things those are the things that we liked. And but I think I will also go right into now in terms of the negatives. I don't think that there's any disagreement between either one of us. There is no reason whatsoever for this to have been a 3-hour movie.
And it felt like a freaking 3-hour movie. There's a difference, right? I mean, when you have ebbs and flows of a movie, when it's good, you don't concern yourself with time.
Right. It was 3 hours, and with that 3 hours, it somewhat collapsed under its own weight. I think we both were surprisingly drawn into it for the first hour or so, and then at a certain point, it just felt bloated. It just, by the end of the second hour, not only did it feel bloated, but we were checking okay, how much time's left?
Yeah,
And it's like, there's still a
guilty.
whole hour.
Yeah, I saw you looking at your clock, and I was like doing the same thing.
Right. And by the end of the third hour, I was getting a little slap happy. I was starting to giggle at some of the stuff on the screen, because it's just, it's so self-serious, and it just plods on and on for so long that at a certain point, it just becomes almost like a parody of itself. It just,
Well, the funny thing, I since we're on negative, obviously, is one thing that's always intrigued me about Batman and Catwoman is the friction they have between each other. Like, there's obviously there's this I won't call it love affair, but there's definitely a physical attraction with each of them, right? And historically it's been treated like organically. It just, the way this is approaching this movie, it feels like a freaking cologne ad. I mean, they're like,
right.
I think in the way it was shot, with these sepia tones, and I almost feel bad for the actors, because we're supposed to believe that they have the hots for each other, but it just felt so forced and just.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose we're supposed to do this because there's this tension between our characters, because we're both torn in our own, we're both damaged, and yet we're drawn to each other. But it just felt like, it's disinteresting. In fact, for the record, I like Zoe Kravitz as an actress, but I thought what she brought as Catwoman was pretty much just bland, even to the point where I just like, is this supposed to be Catwoman, or is this supposed to be just a cat burglar? Because she didn't have a lot of personality. It almost made Batman 3 with what was it, Anne Hathaway, whatever her version looked like. It was which I didn't think was great to begin with either, but anyway, it just seems like that was one of the big sell points too in this movie, is that because historically they've always had that interesting relationship. It just felt unnecessary and forced, and because of the length of the movie, it just made it felt that much more obvious. So
yeah, so actually, I'll say, okay, here's a plus point for me, which is that, that we finally get a Batman movie that it's Batman and it's not Batman versus the Joker as the main story. But the downsides are, okay, so they try and do something a little different in terms of the villain not just being the Joker for the millionth time, but they still throw in the Catwoman thing like constantly. Like, when do we ever get a Batman movie that's just, like when you read Batman comics, it's not like Batman and Catwoman every comic you read. It's also not Batman and Joker every comic you read. And the other thing is, okay, finally they did something other than Joker, except they made Riddler so much like Joker.
Well, even the way he like in Joker, the one that with Joaquin Phoenix, how he influenced, our society to almost look at him in a positive light in his actions. Well, the Riddler was treated the same way, where he created this movement of people, and it felt just so like it's a template, and DC is using it for the same, and it just felt like something we'd seen before, like in Batman 1, where they Scarecrow, they released all that gas in the city. Well, we'd get something similar to that in this movie. And I was like, oh my God, are we really doing this again? It just felt like you said earlier, it felt kind of interesting and fun in the first hour. And even in the first hour, I still had my doubts, because, Robert Patterson, anyway, he's a great actor. I mean, I haven't seen him in a lot of roles, but I just his version of Batman to me wasn't believable. I mean, I never felt like this is a person that could actually handle himself in a situation.
Yeah.
And I never felt that this Batman had a level of intelligence that would be able to be a true detective. And I just, wasn't convincing, I guess. So.
Yeah, no, those are actually pretty good points. Those are pretty valid points. Again, for me, like for the first hour, I was sort of okay, it's actually giving me sort of a detective story and where it's it all leading to. But what it all leads to is just, here we go again. It just leads to the, I, I mean, I don't think this is any big spoiler, but I'll give a minor spoiler alert that it just all leads to more city corruption. you know, that really, behind it all is about um, corruption in Gotham City.
Same thing has been done in every previous Batman.
So it doesn't really lead up to some reveal that's like, oh wow, okay, that's pretty clever, or that's pretty interesting, or that's kind of different. Like nothing like that. It was just okay, leads up to just the big, the reveal is that we're just rehashing everything that's already made $1 billion for us before. So we'll just do it again.
So can you imagine, this is 177 minutes long. What's the director cut going to be? or did we see the director's cut?
I'm sure we've got to have seen the
And when you,
director's cut.
and dude, seriously though, when you told me, because I didn't know the length was, but when you told me it was 177 minutes long, I felt like, oh God. And that was my first reaction because, are we trying to make like Citizen Kane for Batman? I don't know. That's a long time to anyway, I think it tried to be something bigger than it was.
Yeah.
I think, when's the last time we saw with Ben Affleck's Batman? That was just a couple years away. And of course we got the Snyder cut version of Batman. And I actually grew to like Ben Affleck as Batman. I know that's probably blasphemous to say that, but at least there was like, we didn't have to hear his voice always talking like he's got like hemorrhoids or something. There was science behind his voice. He had a synthesizer, and it was, like I said, I have to believe that if you're just a regular dude who's in shape, can handle himself against like 4 different people that are going to try to hurt you. And I don't care if you have a utility belt that has, a bunch of weapons in it, you still have to be able to defend yourself. And so I don't know. There was some physicality with Ben Affleck and obviously with previous Batmans, but Robert, I just didn't feel, they had to have the gratuitous shirt off, to show us without a shirt off, like, hey, I've got muscles too, but I just never felt like if he was in a real fracas, he could handle himself. So I don't know. Maybe I'm expecting too much.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess to wrap it up, I'd say my thoughts about it were I heard that the Batman was announced. My reaction was yawn, don't care. Went and gave it a try anyway. Was, pleasantly surprised for a while. But by the time it was over, my reaction is still yawn, don't care. Not the worst Batman film that I've seen. There's certainly worse ones that they've made, but if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have missed anything.
Will you ever watch it again?
No.
Yeah, I agree. I think ultimately,
Yeah.
Jan.
If you were going to give this stars, how many stars would you give it out of 5?
1.5.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I'd be a little more generous than that.
And I have to say that if it was because of the length, I found when you're watching a movie and you're like completely bored, if that's not a one-type movie, if that's not a low-star movie, then I don't know what is. At least if it sucks really bad, you're enjoying the fact that it, like Fantastic Four. I mean, there was something funny about that because it was so bad. This is not even like, it's just boring.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll be a little more generous and give it 2 stars.
Okay. I'd be interested to see what other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even almost tempted to give it 2.5, just because I did think it was overall well executed. Like I think the performances were enjoyable. There was kind of a style to it.
Paul Dano was great as Riddler. I agree. I liked Colin Farrell as Penguin.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I mean, he definitely played an interesting character, and it was interesting having that character and calling that character Penguin. I guess for me, I'm sorry?
It's got to Cobbleworth, right? Cobblepot.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. I guess for me that my I can't get over that he doesn't have any trick umbrella.
Well,
Like,
and I
how can
think
he be the Penguin and not have,
well,
some kind of trick umbrella?
well, it's like the Riddler. They tried to like ground these people in a sense of reality, like, which
Yeah.
is why I was making a comment about being a believable Batman. If this guy could actually, it's like many years ago. I remember there's a story about some dude that acted like a superhero in Seattle, and he walked around. And he would become like he could actually handle himself somewhat. So in reality, this is what we're supposed to believe, that these people are actually. So they have like caricatures. He had like a scar on his face. Oswald. Did they ever call him Penguin in the movie? I don't
Yeah,
recall.
yeah, they
Okay.
did. Yeah.
And of course, he had his cane and everything. But yeah, it was almost like a caricature of the actual. But actually, what I was going to say, the one performance that stood out with me in this movie was Peter Sarsgaard, the guy who played that district attorney. His part of the movie was limited, but I thought the scenes he was in he was great. I mean, just really good. So
Yeah.
All
right. Well, anyway, I think that that kind of covers our covers our thoughts in regards to the Batman. And thank you for watching Slice of SciFi.
see you.